Fear of the other, immigration, refugees. When I started writing this novel, I had no idea how important these topics would become. But here we are. We spend so much time picking at each other, picking at our differences, that we don't remember we're all one species. We are more similar than different. And all this petty BS is completely unimportant and only drives a wedge deeper between our people. Instead of tearing each other down, we need to build each other up, celebrate our similarities, and appreciate our differences. How boring would our world be if we were all the same? Keeping that in mind, what would happen? What would we do if alien arrived on our planet tomorrow? How would we react if the President of the United States came on TV and announced that within 24 hours, 450 alien ships were going to arrive with a race of beings called the Nentri? They weren't coming to invade, but instead they needed our help. Their world was destroyed, and they had nowhere to go. How would we react? Would all of our prior petty stupidness matter? Or would we realize just how immature we've been and work for a better future? How would this affect global politics, religion, social issues? How would we react? How would any of you react? Well, Todd Landon is us. He lives and works here in Silicon Valley. He and his husband live in San Jose. And we get to live this reality through him and through our other two main characters, Mirtov, the Speaker General of the Nentri, and Maiko, the Vice Speaker, her second in charge. These three beings hold the weight of two civilizations in their hands. Will they be able to bridge the gap for both the humans and the Nentri amongst mistrust, terrorist attacks, and personal loss? Will this be the start of the new age for both species, or will bigotry and miscommunication bring these two worlds to their knees and final end? So that kind of gives you the idea of what the story's about. So what I thought I would do is read from two separate parts of the book. The first part will be a moment between Todd and Jerry. Todd has just confronted Jerry on the military vehicles he saw heading up to Mount Hamilton. On his way back, he saw these on his way back from the grocery store. Jerry still doesn't believe the story that Brad, Todd's estranged brother, had just told them. At this point, they're finishing dinner. By the end of the scene, Jerry's reluctance to believe Brad has shifted. If I've marked it right, dinner was quiet. Todd had expanded on the Mexican theme and had made tacos to go with the tamales. He dropped his napkin onto the plate. All right, those were good. He patted his belly. We should have tried them sooner. Well, now we know. And your tacos were the perfect compliment. Jerry stretched a bit before he got up and collected the plates. Come on, let's get this put away and cleaned up. They were busy with cleanup, not paying attention to the television until they recognized the sound of a special bulletin. Getting into the living room, they fell silent watching the TV. Reporters jockeyed for attention from the press secretary in the White House briefing room. If there's going to be an announcement, isn't it usual for the press secretary to tell us what the topic is? One of the reporters questioned, her voice raised so she could be understood, particularly one called without advance notice. The president informed me about the address an hour ago, Press Secretary Frank Chen said to a visibly annoyed member of the press. The president will address the nation and Congress tomorrow night at 8 Eastern Time. Jumping on the end of a sentence, a female reporter shouted, "Does this have anything to do with the troop movements in Europe and Asia?" Yes, President Zachary will be addressing the troop rotations and provide an update on military movements. Chen answered, "Next question, please." Todd turned to Jerry, who was focused on the television. He would have thought he was a statue if it wasn't for his breathing. "What about FEMA?" a female reporter yelled at the press secretary to get his attention. "FEMA has been reported outside of Hartsfield, Jackson, Atlanta International Airport, Los Angeles International Airport, and Chicago O'Hare. They report they are conducting practice disaster emergency responses, but reports say it looks like they're staging for something." Chen's face brightened with a smile. "FEMA conducts regular joint exercises with city and state officials all the time. Those are 3 of the busiest airports in this country. It only makes sense for FEMA to practice disaster responses with them on occasion to ensure we're prepared. Next question. Will the president," a male reporter leaped out of his seat to be heard above the other reporters shouting for his attention, "address the reports that the UN peacekeepers joining in the sealing of," let's see if I can pronounce this right, "Roque de los Muchachos Observatory in the Canary Islands." If I didn't pronounce that right, sorry guys. "We've been told that the White House made the request. Is that true?" "I have no information on that," Chen said. He nodded to his aide. "Last question." He pointed to another reporter. The older reporter stood. "We've heard reports that President Zachary has been meeting privately with several leaders in Europe. He's also met with the Japanese Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of Australia, and the Chinese Premier. Is he going to be announcing a shift in our strategy towards China?" "As you know, the President meets with world leaders on a regular basis." "All in the last week?" the older reporter interrupted. "As I said, the President meets with world leaders on a regular basis. He is not announcing any shift in policy towards our friends in China. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have nothing more to share." With that, Mr. Chen left the podium and headed off stage. Jerry bit his lower lip, and Todd shifted back and forth on his feet. The camera returned to Tanya Smith. "For those of you joining us, late-breaking news from the White House, President Zachary has announced that he will be addressing the nation tomorrow night at 8 Eastern. As we get more details, we'll bring them to you. Now back to the lineup with Kimberly Griffield. Jerry crossed his arms. Your brother might not be crazy or lying." Jerry's face was pale and his eyes were wide. "I'm not sure what's happening, but I'm glad we got the stuff for the house." He reached for Todd's hand as they continued watching TV. So that's the first